Hey guys, my name is Raven Phoenix and welcome to the Structure of Man Learn to Draw the Human Figure from your Mind Training course. Okay, so in the previous lesson, here we've reached a significant milestone to be able to draw out the skeletal structure using our toolkit in a gesture drawing system, right? It begins to take that fluid form, and we know from within that toolkit how to use it to create the skeletal structure, right? So regardless of how you end up in the end drawing the complete figure with all the muscles, right? It's going to be really up to you as to choose which path you want to go, right? So there's several paths to this. One is that you can either use the toolkit like this, or the other path is you can use the toolkit like this and then draw out all the basic shapes and then top of it do the surface anatomy, right? So uh, it's really a choice between which idea you want to go, right? So if you can do it this way and then envision all the basic shapes on top of this and then put all the muscles for even more accuracy, right? But in the end, it's just going to come down really just to basic forms and understanding the surface anatomy, right? All you have to do is really just think about the skeletal structure in the end, right? It depends on really your choice. So when we get into the muscles, we're going to look at this issue much more deeper so we can draw it out, our figures much more rapidly. Okay, so uh, what we're going to do now is begin to understand the two new bones that we need to invent, which we're going to call the ulna and the radius, right? And these are the bones that are going to define the forearm and will allow the hand to turn in this or this way, right? We can twist the hand. So to do this, what we need to do is first understand a basic concept of this and really just understanding this in 3D. So if we had to understand just the basic concept of this, here we could just draw out a basic shape over here. Let's say we're going to first draw out a box over here first, just to get the mind to understand the concept over here. Right, so this bottom box, here we're going to say this box here is really going to be the structure of the elbow, meaning that your elbow is really this over here, and then over here we're going to push this out a little bit, and then we're going to let's say go over here, and in its most basic sense in 3D, three-dimensional, we're going to add like another piece of wood that's going to go on top over here like this, right? So it's really this thing over here. So what this thing is that this is really like a big piece of bone that if we now put the humerus bone, it would really go over here like this, right? Here would be that pointy area that we were talking about for the elbow if we were looking at this in 3D. Then we would have this structure over here, and then we would have this, and then we said it's another thing here, and then it goes like this, right? So what I'm talking about here is, if you go back to your formulas, actually when we had understood the humerus bone, what I'm talking about is here. This box is sitting right over here. Okay, that's what this is. What we're talking about over here. So I'm just gonna erase this over here, right? So just so you can conceptually understand it. And here, this thing here in this very basic idea is because if it's going to be sitting over here, here in the back is where it gets lodged in when you try to bend your elbow, right? If you go all the way here, this thing is going to get lodged in over here. It's going to straighten out. You will understand this a little more in a few minutes. So this is the beginning of this. So what we're going to say is, okay, well, because this is the forearm, we need to actually make this a little more longer, right? So here we're going to elongate this even more, and here we can actually elongate it all the way down over here, just like this, and make it like this really long piece of wood attached to it. Okay, and this basically is going to be the same thing coming down like this, right? So we're just going to sketch this out like this, just like that. Okay, so this is the end over here. So basically your wrist is going to be going here. So the characteristics of this bone is when you're looking at it from the front, right? From the front, meaning that if this is the front right of your arm and it's going to be here, if it's going down this way, when we're looking down, what we need to understand about this is basically halfway from here, this thing is going to start to turn in. So here we're going to now cut this using a tool and cut it over here, right? So this thing is now going to be cut like this. So basically we're just cutting this like this, right? It's going to be just like this. So here I'm going to erase this part here just to show you the characteristics of this bone, right? The basic idea of it. So just keep in mind that this is still flat. So if this was laying flat on the table, all of this here, there's not going to be any kind of arc here. It's all going to be flat on the table, right? So if we like do some kind of a texture here of our tablecloth, it's going to be all flat over here. Okay, so once we have this, so we're also just going to add another piece of wood here and just make it come out a little bit more. So it's going to be like on this angle going in this way. Okay, so here I'm just going to erase this stuff and make these ideas a little more cleaner, right? And then this here, I'm just going to do it like this. Okay, so basically this is the concept of the first bone, right? So this is the ulna. Okay, so the next bone we're going to now talk about is a very significant piece of bone, and this bone plays a really important role in the construction of the arm, which we're going to see in a little bit. So this bone, see, this is where this was over here. So if I go back to the paper that we were looking at, the radius, this is the new bone that we're going to create. The radius is going to fit right over here. Okay, so here on the side, the radius is going to be here, right? That piece of bone is going like this that we had just created, right? So if it's kind of like this, right, it's going to have like a hook over here basically. So here we're just going to add another design here that's going to be like a hook. So that hook is really just going to be sitting like this over here, like so. And this is what's going to define your elbow. Okay, this is your elbow. So the radius is going to be sitting here. And this is an important concept to grasp, as we'll see later on, is because this is where you get that very small nudge here in the forearm, right? Your forearm muscles are going to be here like this over here. Then you're going to get that really, it's like a ditch in the arm. You're going to get your elbow over here, or your triceps over here, right? So there's like this ditch in the arm, and this is something that you will notice yourself. If you look at the bottom part of your elbow and if you straighten it out, you'll see that there's a ditch inside the outer part of that side, and this is the ulna that causes it, right? And this is a significant area in figure drawing that appears on practically all figures, right? So what this means is that over here, the radius is basically just going to be this here, a cylindrical shape. And then here I'm just going to clean up some of these ideas so you can start seeing this. Okay, so this is going to be over here like this. It's going, look where this is sitting. It's on top. Okay, so since we know that the over here, see this part here, this whole part is going to be taken up by the the humerus bone. So we're going to now understand that, okay, if it sits over here, we're going to pull it down and we're going to attach it right over here, right? So it's going to go up against the humerus bone, right? So, but notice that it's up here, right? We put it up here first just to get the concept to understanding where this is, and we're going to shift it over here, right? So that piece of bone for the humerus will sit over here. And this is the nudge that's going to be caused when the muscles go in your elbow. So what happens is basically this guy is just going to come up here like this. Just imagine this to be like a pipe that's just going like this, and we're going to basically come over here. So what happens is that this pipe also, when it goes over here, it's going to expand over here, right? So it's just imagine this, that this is now this big, but it's going to come on an angle. So this is going straight, and this is going to go out a little bit, not that much, and it's just going to come back in. So basically it's just coming like this, and it's going to expand, okay? But look what happens to it, that in the end it ends up going downward. So it was up, and over here it's down, right? So just imagine this conceptually, that this bone here is just going this way, right? So this tells you quite a bit about what's going on with this part of the forearm, because this is going to play a major role in figure drawing, right? And understanding how the system works and how the muscles, this is part of the figure that when we create it, we'll see that when the muscles are wrapped, because the wrist can turn up and down like this, what's going to happen is any muscle that's attached is going to be able to cross over, right? It can twist and conform. And this is a concept that we'll look at in detail, right? So your wrist is going to be here. So what this tells you about the ulna and the radius is that where the elbow is, this bone really doesn't move, right? It's completely stuck on the humerus bone over here, right? Regardless of the fact, so if you wanted to research this, you could put your hand over here, find the ulna all the way in the back, right? And then try to twist your wrist. You'll notice that it doesn't move, right? It creates the illusion that it's moving. It's because we can move the arm this way and this way, and it rotates. So it creates the illusion that this is getting moved, but it doesn't. It's stuck. It's only this bone that allows the wrist to move in that way, right? So keep that in mind for in the future, that this is a rule that we're coming up with, that the ulna does not move. It's stuck onto this guy here, and it's the way the arm mechanism is going to be designed. It's really the radius that's going to be moving, right? So to understand this, what we need to know from this is that wherever the radius is where the thumb is going to be connected, right? The thumb is on the side of the radius, and this part here of your hand is on the part of the ulna, right? So this will come in handy, is because if you're twisting the arm left and right or whatever, that's what we have to understand, right? So if you go back, let's go back to the drawing that we did of over here. So if you go back to this drawing here, knowing just this fact over here, that this is where the thumb is, you know that, okay, I understand that over here when we are drawing it, when we finally understood how the ulna is working, the ulna is just going to be here on the side of the palm, and it is the radius on this side that's going to be on the side of the thumb, right? Over here it's going to be the same thing. If the thumb is coming here, let's say if the hand was twisted, if this was the hand twisted, that means the radius is here. Now it's going to twist back around, and it's going to attach here, right? And this is what's going to cause all the muscles to move around. So this is a concept we'll look at in much more detail as we move through this. But this should give the mind a good idea of our invention as to how we want this to work. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.